Welcome, welcome everybody. We'll be getting started in just a minute. All right, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it. Let me share my screen, pull this up. Okay, so before we get into it, I just wanted to, for those of you who are new, and for those of you who have joined our webcast in the before, I just wanted to remind you guys that we will be having a live Q&A at the end of this session. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to submit them in either the chat box or the Q&A box. That can be found at the bottom of your screen and in the bar. If you don't see that, try hovering over the bottom of your screen and it should pop up. Welcome all to ERP Fixers March 2021 webcast, Ask a Fixer. I am your host, Jess Carson with ERP Fixers. Today we're going to be discussing gain better visibility of inventory costs within your ERP system. This is by Rogerio Faleiros. So what is ERP Fixers? We connect you with SAP experts to obtain quality immediate solutions for your SAP system. We consist of thousands of SAP freelancers globally in all SAP modules who are ready to help and assist with their knowledge in SAP. We offer an online platform, SAP Optimization Assessment, Material Ledger, S/4HANA Transitional Roadmap, and cost transparency reports. For more information, you can visit our website at erpfixers.com. Rogerio. So he is an independent SAP consultant specializing in controlling functionality. He's been working with IFRS and integration with product costing and material ledger, minimizing the impact of the changes in SAP for companies in different locations. He is also the author of Configuring, Controlling an SAP ERP and Introducing the Material Ledger and S/4HANA. Rogerio, I'm going to go ahead and give it over to you. For those of you who are just joining again, as a reminder, please submit all your questions into the Q&A or the chat box, and we will get to that at the end.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining. I hope everybody's healthy and safe where you are now across the globe. My name is Rogerio. Yes, I already introduced myself. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to work with Fixers to broadcast this webinar. ERP Fixers and myself, we are partners for a long time already, I think more than 5 or 6 years. And also the name of Paul, we also wrote one book together, we do some conference together, so we know each other, and then we are providing solutions to several different customers, and let's say with different ideas on how to use Material Ledger and also how to improve the usage of SAP itself. So the main purpose of today, I will just turn off my video at this moment, that then broadcast better because we have a lot of attendees. So the main purpose of this webinar, okay, is that we can show or we can introduce different ways of leveraging your system or understanding how Material Ledger is how we can get the best reports from Material Ledger. We know that from ECC point of view, we were facing a lot of difficulties, or let's say challenges, when we were work with Material Ledger. In a point that not all the companies were obliged to use Material Ledger, or let's say in a way that few companies could decide to use Material Ledger, and then we always heard that it's too difficult to use, we have a lot of issues, we don't have reports and things like this. And one of the points that Paul and myself, we were fighting, I think, for several years to try to prove that's not true, that Material Ledger is something that you can use as a benefit. And at the end, seems that we were right, because now we see that in S4, Material Ledger is something that it's there. You don't have a choice to say, I will not use Material Ledger. It's embedded in the system. It's there. You must use Material Ledger. And now we see that the knowledge is also increasing a lot with all the books and all the people now talking about Material Ledger and things like this. But we still have one main question or main big issue related to material ledger that everybody, when they start to use it, say, okay, everything is so nice, everything is so beautiful, but it only works for one material. Okay, and then in this way, I want to show to you that we have some possibilities of having different reports, different cost reports, how we can manage and how you can improve your system to get the best of material ledger. Okay, so everybody knows that when we have material ledger, one of the main transactions of material ledger is called CKM3. Okay, and then the CKM3 transaction is a powerful transaction. So that's the CKM3 transaction in the point of view, meaning this transaction, we can have the value flow of a product, let's say from where it's sourced until where it's sold, from all the movements, everything that you do from a specific material. So you can track the material history. You can track from where the values come from. It's from the PPV from lower level, or it's from the production settlement, or it's from any kind of late adjustment, price adjustment, or invoice adjustment that you have. And also you have what we call cost component split. So the transaction itself is very simple to use. And now that everybody's getting familiar with material ledger, so that's the face of the CKM3, okay? And did not change from ECC to S4. I mean, it changed in some parts that this upper part here is different, but the main part of the CKM3 is still the same. That is, I can still see my inventory by cost components, my receipts, where is the PPV is located, if it's actual value or price difference and everything like this. So it's a powerful transaction. So this case here, finished good, where we can see how we got this as a production, and also if it's direct material, overhead, and where is the price difference, things like this. So everybody knows this transaction and getting expert in this transaction more and more to understand where the value comes from, where the price difference comes from. For example, if I use the price or the value quantity structure, so we can see from the components that brought the variance, or the components, the price of the components, the hours, the machine, the overheads, and also if we have templates. So it's extremely powerful. But it's so good that at the end, everybody starts asking, okay, I liked a lot. I use this transaction a lot. I mean, it's the heart of my inventory or to my, let's say, my Cardex to understand what's going on with my company or with my product. But if it's a small company, let's say you can have someone that goes material by material to do a screenshot and get information about this transaction, and let's say put in Excel. But at the end, what you need is a possibility to use this transaction in a way that you can have multiple materials at the same time and with the same granularity of CKM3. So to fulfill this requirement, I know that seems to be, let's say 2 years ago, it was, let's say no one was talking about this, but now everybody's talking about, let's say, where I can get this kind of information for material ledger, okay? And then SAP brought this long time ago, and believe it or not, this is present in SAP since 4.7. This material ledger report is there. But it was not something that SAP was really publishing or looking, okay? So what we have now, we have a few set of transactions that can be used to have material ledger for several materials at the same time and everything at the same time, okay? So now SAP brought this to this area, to the material ledger, okay? And then in the information system, we have a set of transactions that will work very similar to COPA. When I mean COPA, it's because the way to design the reports are very similar. Like I have a form, I have a form that I create the form, I define what I want in the form, like which values, which crossing, if it's in beginning inventory and things like this. And we also have a report. So the transactions for material ledger itself, okay, everything starts with KKML. So I'm just bringing here. So we start with KKML 0 until KKML 7, okay? And there are several OSS notes already published in SAP in the Launchpad that you can just go there and then show the transaction you have. When I mean that I have forms to be used, what we are saying is that we create our reports based on forms, okay? Very similar to COPA, what I mean. And then I can have values, and I can have also the distribution from let's say, from material ledger lines or from CKM3 lines. And these lines, for example, we have one point, begin inventory. You see here that I'm replicating or I'm creating the CKM3 in the same granularity that, I'm creating this report in the same granularity that I have CKM3, like begin inventory, purchase order, production, stock transfer, transfer posting, receipts, cumulative inventory, consumption, and so on. And every line of this one here, what we do, we tell which category we have and which process category we are using here. Okay, so that is what builds this group here in the CKM3. So if I look here, receipt, and I say this is production, and then I go here in this line, and I look to the material ledger document itself, I can see material update. I can see that it's a category ZU, and the process category is BA. So if I want to replicate this in the material ledger report, what I will do, I want to see what is production. Then I go here, category, receipts, and process category, production. So what you do, it's really crossing functionalities from what you want to see in the line and what you want to see in the column. Okay, so this transaction here, so if everybody looks to your system today, it's already there. Okay, so KKML 0 until KKML 7, it's there to be used, free for the user. The only thing you have to do is to create the form and create the report for you. Okay, so if you're familiar with the transaction, good. If you're not familiar, then it's a good opportunity to start. So if we keep here in CKM3, like I said, you can check the cost component split, do one period and things like this. At the end, what are the limitations? I cannot have a total, or let's say, I cannot do analysis by profit center to understand what are my variance by profit center and products, product family, product hierarchy. It's only one product at the time. And there is no cost component split, multiple materials at the same time. So this is, let's say, not a gap, but it's a gap that I would say it's present in ECC, okay? And it's also a problem that we have in S4, because in S4, the KKML0 is still there, but we don't have the possibility to go in the cost component split for multiple materials. And then talking and discussing, we come to a proposal, and then we made, let's say, an evolution or enhancement in the KKML0 in a way that we brought this to the product, okay? So when I mean we have this in the product, that is, we can now have a material, well, let's say a KKML0 based on standard, based on actual, level and multi-level, I will explain to you, and we bring a lot of information to the system. So let's say you can do drill down for any custom field you have in your Mara table, because we can bring these as we know where to go. We can bring these if in any custom field you have in MARC table. So it's open now in a way that we can manipulate and bring data and enhance the standard report in a way that we have now not only what SAP has a standard as KKML0, that is only preliminary evaluation price difference by material, but now adding more information like the cost component split and data that we have from the material master data. If I go to the form now, when I mean that we have much more fields or much more possibilities. So imagine like this, I already explained how we treat this. So this part here belongs to the standard. This part here, also total value, belongs to the standard. The quantity belongs to the standard because it's there. But this part here, when we have the breakdown of cost component split, it's not present in the standard. Okay, so how can we see what's not present or what do we do? So the same way as we have for material or for COPA that we bring here when I have a value field or the account, it's a account-based COPA. So what I have here is that you see that everything that starts with Z or Z belongs to the solution. So we brought much more information at this moment than we had in the standard. Standard, I have preliminary valuation, single level, multi-level exchange, and then first level price difference and first level multi-level. In the solution, the investment solution, we have the possibility to open exchange rate fixed and variable, single level fixed and variable, okay? Preliminary valuation fixed and variable, that is this line here from SAP standard, it's only the total, but we have the possibility to break down in fixed and variable, the multi-level also fixed and variable, and so on. We also have a few that you collect everything, one for variable cost, another one for variable standard, and one for fixed and fixed standard. These two new fields here, this one, the planned lot size, I will explain later that it's also embedded in the new solution that we brought for the system, okay? So this is what we have as enhancement or improvement of the solution in the KKML. And then when we want to start, so what I go to the field and say, okay, I have also now the cost component split, that this is not present in the standard. So I define here that my cost component split is the one that I want to see. So if I have the cost component split at this moment, I can do the columns. So for example, I have total value, and then I say the cost component split that will go here is the 10. And then this is the direct material. Then I have the delivery overhead, 20. And then I have here packaging, 40, and so on, okay? The same number, of course, we represent from the transaction that we have that's called OKTZ. So if we go here to this transaction, then I have my cost component split. I respect the same number. So what I'm saying is I'm able to add the cost component structure and the cost component item to here in a way that I can have fixed and variable for each line in the way of CKM3. Okay, so what we can do now is really to build a CKM3 transaction that matches in total and matches the CKM3. That will help a lot of companies in a way that they can identify not only CKM3, I will give some examples that the companies, they can identify, for example, the PPV in the column of direct material only. That means what they purchase. If they have price difference in delivery overhead, and so on, in packaging items. So we are able now to do the breakdown of each cost component item in preliminary valuation and also in the way of doing the price difference only. Okay, so if I run now and let's say let's do a test of this transaction, for example, I already built a report called KKML0. Okay, and then I called some ML detail. So I will run because this is prepared already. And then I'm running for this month, okay? So I have here material, price determination because I want to restrict. Why I want to restrict? Because this solution and the enhancement solution also works for V materials, okay? The standard SAP, the standard KKML0 only works for price determination 3. Okay, so this and also the standard, this one here works for V and S products, okay? Different plants, different company codes, and different periods. And I will play a little bit with the report. And then you see how we can improve the data, okay? So this works in S4, same way, and also works in ECC, okay? So that means you can run the report in both systems. There is no difference of using this. And as it reads the enhancement part of the KKML0, if there is any upgrade in SAP, let's say you change a version, it will keep working, okay? It will work in the same way. So in this way here, you see that I have the CKM3 in the same layout. I try to build the same layout of the CKM3 that we have for the specific product. And then for who is not familiar with this report, it's very powerful. So for example, let's filter this material, the P700. Then I can just navigate and then I see how the cost component split will add up. So let's say I want to get this product here. And there we go. So I have, if I compare here, I have begin inventory, total value of the production, and I have also the end inventory in the balance for this one. Okay, the total quantity that it's in this column. But now what we can do here, I can start matching the part of direct material, material overhead. You see that everything's matched. So this part here from direct material to the right side is not standard SAP. Okay, that's the enhancement of the product that we brought in a way that we can bring more data, more detail to the company. Okay, and another way, it's a very simple report to use. For example, if I want to see what let's say how much production I have, I could easily say, okay, let's see the materials. I click in the overview, and then now I have the information by material. So what we did, we transposed the report. And what we can do, I can select what I want to see. So let's say I want to see only production. So I mark the column, and then I choose only prod. Okay, good. And I want to see only quantity and total value. So I mark again the column, and then I say, okay, I want to see only total and quantity. And then I can sort, okay, what was the product that I produced more in value and things like this. So there we go. And then I see my product. So it's really quick way of using the report, okay? And the way of building the report as well, it's very easy. So let's say I don't want to check production anymore, but I want to check now purchase order. And then I have these items that I purchased. Then I want to see what is the highest purchase number I had in the moment. So I know that this case in here, I had 12,000. And then if I want to go back to the material, I just go back here, and then I have the overview of this item again. Okay, in a way that it will compare with CKM3. So let me just show to you. And then let's add the CKM3. There we go. So in the same way we have for the CKM3, I have for the cost component. Okay. Now let's play a little bit and say, I want to have more information or more filters for the report. So as I mentioned, that it's a very quick report or way to build reports. So I can tell, I want now my report that I want to have a filter by material type. Then I go here and I say, okay, now material type is relevant for filter. Or another field that I want to have, for example, valuation area, but valuation area most of the time matches with your plant. Okay, or material status in the plant. I can also say, okay, give me all the materials that is active, not active, and things like this. Okay, so I can enhance the report in a way that it brings more data. So if now I save the layout and I run the report, I see now that material type is an option that I can filter right at this moment. So it's very, let's say, straightforward. I mean, you can easily create small reports or things like this to fulfill the company needs, just changing or adding the layout and things like this. You can build a report, for example, from the procurement department to tell, okay, I want to direct material and price difference. In this way, you have only what is the price difference as well. Okay, so it's very straightforward and it works very well. Okay, if we talk about performance, you have to imagine that we are reading here SAP database, and then of course if we have thousands of materials, we need to restrict this filter more, but it's like COPA in ECC point of view. Okay, so the performance depends on how many items or how many plants you're running, how many periods you're running at the same time, and so on. Okay, so it's a you have to manage or balance when you're running the report, or you create some uh, small reports only for the area that you want to work and so on. So imagine a way that you want to understand, for example, how much stock you have. Let's say in this, if I have phase out materials, then you want to see how much you have in phase out. So if you filter by plant material status, you can see how much you have in phase out. Or you have also in active or phasing or underdeveloped items. So you can start having a kind of report that, of course, you have a way to get this today. If you download the table, if you do a matching or VLOOKUP, or if you do any kind of a work in Excel, you can achieve this. But now you have this there. I mean, you just, for example, analysis by profit center. You can see all the profit centers or the balance by profit center and things like that. So it's really or material group if you have, or by product hierarchy and things like this. Another advantage that we brought to this report, so as we know where to go to enhance the report, we said, why we don't bring the GL account, the balance sheet account, that imagine this is something that most of the accounts that we go, they ask, okay, how much I have as material overhead standing in my balance sheet account. So we have the possibility now to say, okay, how much is my end inventory by account, and how much is standing there by each line. For example, this is packaging. So you see that all the columns will show as packaging. So we brought here in this functionality also the balance sheet account of the stock that you are able to say, okay, in my finished good account, I have now 185, where part of this is direct material, part of this is material overhead, and part of this is machine. What's the benefit of this? You know how much the impact of increasing direct material, increasing in the raw material, you will do in your balance sheet, and you know where it is. So that's the really functionality that we see a lot of companies when we ask that they see. That's a benefit that we see as well. Not only the possibility of having the costing breaking, but also this functionality here, okay? So let's say I have here, I can see my beginning inventory by cost components. I can also see my end inventory by cost components, okay, if we go in this way. So it's very straightforward. So we brought a lot of new functionalities to the standard, like the additional fields from Mara table, additional fields from MEBW, additional tables from MyC table. Also, we brought information related to the accounts and the cost component that is what everybody is asking. Okay, so that is really powerful in that way. So imagine this way here. Let's say also playing with the report to say that the report is easy to use. Let's say I have here the same layout. In direct material, what I have is total value. So let's say I want preliminary evaluation. Let's keep this one. So preliminary evaluation, good. Then this one. Now it's direct material as preliminary evaluation. Then I will mark here. Let's say now I want to have the price difference for direct material. So I'll take here single level at this moment. I'll just write here. Yeah. So I'll just run from one material, the one that we have PPV, and then we go on. So what we have now, if we compare again to the SAP or to the CKM3, we know how much is my preliminary valuation of this item that I choose only one. Okay, so if I go to CKM3, I can also see that. So what I have here, so I just touched the direct material. So now I have here preliminary valuation, and then what I have, 25,000. So you can quickly create PPV reports based now on cost components. Okay, it's really powerful for the organization itself. So the gain of having the advantage of the KKML0 with these additional fields is that you can bring value to the organization as a report. I'm not saying that you don't have a way to get this today. There are thousands of ways of getting, but you get this from different sources, from different areas, from different reports, from different tables downloaded. And you know, every organization we have one person that they have authorization to S616 or things like that. Okay, so it's really, I mean, straightforward. Like I said, you can use very easily. Okay. So I mentioned that we build everything based on forms. Okay, so let's say we can create the forms and identify in the way that we want to do the breakdown based on cost components, so on. So let's say if you know exactly what we have in your KTZ or KTZ that we have now, today we have, let's say in ECC, there is a limitation of 40 fields if you do everything as only not fixed and variable, and 20 if you do fixed and variable for both lines. Okay, what I'm saying is, KTZ in ECC, this transaction here, I can have up to 4 cost components. Okay. Now in S4, after 1809, if I'm not wrong, yes, 1809, yes, 1809. We can have up to 120. So what I'm saying is more and more companies are looking for the granularity of the data in a way that if I have a possibility to have 120 cost components, that means I can almost do the breakdown of my bill of material cost components. If I play with the origin groups and things like this, I can even split even more. So more and more companies are going to the direction that if I have a possibility to use 120 cost components or 60, if it's a fixed and variable combined, I have a lot of possibilities, and more requests for this type of reports will appear. Okay. I saw that we have some questions, okay, but we will wait the question at the end. Jess will help us to try to answer most of the questions. So I'm reading the question, then I'll also can also be prepared for the question. Good. What else we bring for the report? Okay. So as we have the opportunity to work in the report or to do the breakdown in the way we want, so we found a way that, okay, we have the functionality not only for material ledger, but we have the functionality also for the standard cost calculator. So the material ledger will work for the main material ledger, no problem, okay? And we also can bring the alternative valuation run, the famous AVR, okay? So we can have material ledger for the main material ledger, let's say legal, or any calculation of the alternative material ledger that you want, okay? In the application here, we choose if I want the cumulative one, or if we want alternative valuation run, okay? So we have the actual material ledger, preliminary evaluation plus price difference for both material ledgers, 1, 2, 3, how many material ledgers you calculate, let's say as an alternative valuation run, and also for the actual material ledger. And then we say, okay, if we have this possibility to show the material ledger in a certain, another possibility, if we use the 3 currencies like profit center, local currency, profit center currency, global profit center, we also can bring the valuation view of the currency. So if we have legal, group, and profit center valuation, it's all there. okay? Also, if you have auxiliary cost component or the main cost component, we can also bring the form based on this cost component. So it's very powerful and also full of information. And we have a possibility now that we look here. So we can do the breakdown of the report in a way that we can see material ledger actual. So the options we have for the enhancement now, it's material ledger actual, material ledger alternative evaluation none. I can now see all the released cost I have for a specific period, for a specific product, for the plant, and all cost calculated. Now we are going to the second layer, that's the released cost, okay? So the released cost, the form is very similar, but if I'm looking to release cost or release the standard in a certain period, I don't have begin inventory, I don't have anything related to material because now it's just one shot. It's a release the standard for a specific period. Okay, so the filters we change a little bit because now I don't have the level of material ledger anymore, and then I add at this moment the cost invariant. Okay, so if I do this and then I go back, so the report now it will look a little bit different. So I have here released cost, and imagine I have here a period, let's say 04-2017 until 03-2021, and the cost invariant PPC1. So 04-2017 to 321. So we see here now what we have, that it's a lot of companies that are using this functionality in a way that you're familiar that how difficult it is to see which cost was released, for example, in January 2015, or which cost SAP used to evaluate the inventory I don't know, in a year, 1 year ago, and things like this, if the companies are also changing the standard. So imagine a way that, see here, I have the possibility to see which standard costs were used in a specific period of the time, okay? And why companies use this? Because they want to track if a local company, a local site, they are changing the standard in a specific period that should not change. For example, if the companies, they follow the budget, and they should release the standard only once a year. And by using this, you can easily say, okay, I have a flip of standard from 1 month to another one, okay? So it's really useful report. See here, I did a test just to show to you. So from 2017 until February 21, my standard was 5,180, okay, with a lot size of 10. And then the split of direct material. Now, when we reach to 321, I changed the standard in a way that you see, okay, I see a change in the standard in March, that my direct material increased, and also my material overhead increased. What is the benefit of this report? You can measure the impact of the standard, the change of the standard in the cost component. So you don't need to run several reports or move to BW or something like this, that you can get this. Okay, so with this report, with multiple materials, you can achieve this very easily. And then the same filters that we can use for the material ledger, for the material ledger evaluation one, we can use for this one as well. Okay, so you can imagine, let's see if I do a simulation, if I have a standard, I want to see the price increase. Let's say now that we're in this, let's say, strange year that things, sometimes we have shortage in material, sometimes we have increased price and things like this. I want to see the impact in which line this is going to be the impact. When we calculate CK4TN, we have the possibility to see how the percentage of increase of my cost. Let's say my cost increased 15%, and then with Excel and analysis, you can find where it is. But using this transaction here, using this enhancement, you can easily say, okay, I have increase in my direct material, I have increased also in my material overhead. Okay, so easily you can see where your costs are increasing or decreasing, and where and why this is happening. In the same way, you can select views, you can select period, you can do filters by status, product hierarchy, and things like this. Okay, so it's really powerful, and companies are using these a lot Okay, I'm not saying that you don't have a way to get it. You have a way to get it. I'm just saying now you have a way to get it, everything in the same place. You don't need to go to different departments, ask different costing or feed for the costing, that you can start to build your analysis. You can easily say, you can easily see where the prices or where the difference of the cost are coming from. Okay, so in the same way, we create the form in the same way that we create for material ledger in the same transaction. So what we did, we made a way that I can bring more and more reports depending the way we want to see. So let's say a group of person of the company, the controllers will use the material ledger to see the actual cost. Let's say the plant manager, he wants to see the standard cost of a specific period. He can use another one. And we can also use the third functionality, that is everything related to all cost you calculated. So there are companies that they just don't do the standard, that they use the CK410 to do simulation, like price increase, labor decrease, or change of procurement to say it's outsourced or it's in-house and things like this. So with this, we can use the other form that's called all cost to have also the simulation point of view. In the same way, I can add and remove lines, and then the all cost, we can use it. Okay. So the all cost, it's not on what I'm saying here. We can see cost if it's released, calculated with it's an error and things like that. And you can also filter by status and things like that. So if I go to this costing or to this view at this moment, you see that the filter will change a little bit because the difference from the released cost, the released will fulfill a period that, let's say, it's a period in here. So the released cost of March, we have a released cost that work in March of 2021. Same for April. But the calculate cost, you know, when you create the CK11 and the CK14, you do by date. So every date you have in the filter for a specific cost, we can use, okay? So in this case, what we call here the level, we change to all cost, that it's not the release anymore. And the main difference at this moment is that the costing date is relevant for our filter at this moment, because I want to see every cost that has been calculated. And also the cost component and the status and the cost component view, that I will explain why. So if I go to the report at this moment, and I have this as a filter, I will do only one material to speed up, okay? So I have one product, and I'm saying I want to see all the calculated costs from the period 1/1/2017 until 12/21 from this version here, and from the cost component, from this cost component view. I will explain why the cost component view matters, okay? So then when I run, I say, okay, I have all cost, and then of course SAP will add all the components together. But at this moment, I can tell, okay, what was the costing date for each costing run I have here? And then I know, okay, I have one cost that I have on April 2017, and another cost that it's March 2021. And I can also see this, for example, if I want to see the costing status for a specific period. So both of the costs were released. So I could see at the point that is the released one or the calculated one, and so on. Okay. When I mentioned to you that the costing component view, it's important because some companies, when they do the definition of OKTZ, for example, I use this one here. I can have different views that the cost component views to tell from 1 to 8 to tell where it should go. So let's say if I want a cost component to be part of inventory, part of the cost of goods sold, and so on. And we say, okay, it's still not clear for me what you're talking about. So remember this part here, cost of a good manufactured, cost of a goods sold, and so on. So if I go here to my cost component split, and I choose the one that I'm using, that's RS, and I choose a cost component split, when we build the cost component split, we tell where it should go when I'm dealing with inventory. It should go to fixed and variable. When it's commercial, I don't want this to be relevant. I don't want to be tax or transfer price and so on. If I influence here, okay, when I calculate my CK11M, I have different views. Here, these views will show different values here. So what I'm saying is, I can also do the filter based on the views I have for my costing. Okay, so this case, everything is the same, but I could have, for example, influence of material overhead for a cost that I'm calculating. I don't need a new costing variant. That I just say, I don't want material overhead for my cost of a goods sold. I want only fixed cost. I want only variable cost. So you could also manage this. So that's the reason why it's important to have or to decide in this report which cost component view you want to see. Okay? So that's the main point, because there are companies that they use also the split in the cost calculation to have this. Okay? Very good. So now we mentioned all the functionality that we go for the SAP or the enhancement SAP. Okay, it's everything in the presentation that we will share. So everything that I mentioned, like the comparison of CKM3 and also the multiple materials, let's say even in colors to say where it matches, that it's the same. And some reports example that we went through, and some, let's say, all the functionality. So there is this one that's an easy check of the released cost in the period, the one that I just explained to you before the one, and another one that's all calculated cost. Okay, there are some functionalities that I saw that there are some questions, and that SAP, of course, not related to S4 or to only to ECC, that we can get some enhancement functionalities for the material ledger. And one of the functionalities, we start to use what we call HDBC. I always mention that when we were doing before, prior to the S4, that we were discussing, okay, material ledger, what's the future of material ledger, and so on. And one day I saw a presentation of SAP. It was it was ECC on HANA, or and when at this time we have the tables that were only related to the accelerated tables, that was for material ledger and for COPA. And then at this moment I said, okay, we don't need to work with material ledger. SAP will not phase out the solution, because the first two improvements we have with the database on HANA was for COPA and for material ledger. And then now we see what happened. Now that COPA and account base, it's the core of the AC docker table, or the core of the reporting, and material ledger is the core for stock. Okay, so SAP brought this in ECC already. Okay, that we could create some virtual providers. Okay, that will help also you to do the CDS views and things like this. Can we reach data from the CDS views? Yes, you can reach. The data is available. If you turn on this, it's available. Can we get this data in this KKML0? No. KKML0, it's another tool. If you want to use the CDS views, you have to use another user interface to retrieve the data. Okay, but SAP already created these two views and provided that you can use. So what I'm saying is SAP is preparing the system that you can get the data, but it's not prepared the system that you can get the data in SAP itself. So KKML0 is not reading this data here. What KKML0 reads is, if you use material ledger for a long time, there are some functionalities that you can turn on this aggregation table that is material ledger will work as COPA, like we have total tables to read the report. So that we read in KKML0, but only for preliminary evaluation and also for the price list, but not for the cost component. So meaning to achieve this at this moment through the version we have in SAP, we need to enhance the KKML0. Okay, so it's there are several functionalities that SAP is publishing. I mean, we could spend 3 more hours here talking about the functionalities, but at this moment we are talking about the enhancement of KKML0 and what we can achieve with this functionality that ERP Fixers and myself were offering. Okay, so mainly is we can have material ledger report in KKML0 with multiple materials at the same time, possibility of having multiple materials also by cost component split. For material ledger and alternative valuation one, we can have the same functionality for the released cost. Okay, so we can track released cost by cost component in all periods in the company. And you can have also track for all calculated costs you have in a specific period for any cost invariant, currency, valuation, and so on. Okay, so at this moment, I think just the presentation for the functionality I finished. I think we can open for some discussion and questions. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rogerio. It looks like we had a lot of great questions come in. If we have enough time, we'll try to get to all of them today. I'll go ahead and start with the first few. So first question is, how are you able to add cost components as a parameter?
Okay, so this one, I mean, that's the functionality that we are presenting today. It's enhancement that we do in the KKML functionality, in the standard report functionality. So we enable this using enhancement and some coding to fulfill the requirement. Okay, it's not a customizing that you do a customizing and then you have it, but it's enhancement that we do in the system to make it work. Okay.
Before we get into the next question, because I do see a couple of questions for this, I just want to remind everybody that we will be posting the answers to these questions as well as the recorded session on our website, erpfixers.com, next week. So for those of you who are asking about that, please just keep an eye out. So next question is, do these transactions work only after activating the ML-CDS views?
I think I answered that, but this transaction works with and without, okay? Because the CDS view, it's another technology, and then, as I mentioned, you will reach this from different user interface, or from your Excel with ODBC, or from another interface, not from the KKML0. The KKML0 will work based on the enhancement, okay? So you don't need to turn on the CDS views. Of course, the speed up, you have some speed up if you use this aggregation table, not only the CDS view, but no, you don't need to activate. There is a point that's important to mention is, if you don't have actual cost component view activated, okay, and then I say, okay, if you don't have cost component, actual cost component, then the first report will not work because it's based on actual cost component split. But all the other reports for the standard cost and the released cost will work. Okay, so the solution is, let's say, companies that are not turning on the actual cost component split and the actual material ledger, they can still use the released and the all cost calculated. Okay, and let's say you're in ECC, and we always mention that in Brazil it's mandatory to have. So let's say you have this report for Brazil that we have actual cost and actual cost component split activated, but in US, the company, they don't have material ledger, they can still use the released cost and the other all cost calculated. Okay, so there is no restriction in the functionality. The only restriction, if we don't have actual cost and material ledger, the first report will not work. All the other ones will work. Okay.
Next question is, did you add any field to the KK BML TKAF structure?
Where's this? Which question? To which?
I'll send it over to you.
Okay.
It's I put it all in another sheet, but I'll go ahead and send it to you right now, Rogerio, so you can see it. I just sent it in the chat box.
Yes. That's the idea of the enhancement is to use KKMBL, TKAF, and so on. Correct.
Next question. Oh, sorry. Next question is, does the functionality work in S4?
Yes, it does. It does work in S4. Also, we've converted ECC to S4. I mean, we had a customer that they converted from ECC to S4, they had the report prior in ECC, and after the conversion also works. Because let's say, the brain of the enhancement is to use standard functionalities from SAP. So if the SAP enhanced the standard, our functionality is also enhanced. Okay.
Is the functionality native in S4?
It's sorry. Can you repeat? I could not hear.
Is the functionality native?
No.
I'm sorry, Rogerio. Okay.
We need to enhance the same way we do in ECC. We need to do in S4. Okay, to enhance the fields.
How long does it take to implement the solution?
Let's say it's not like a big project or big bang project that we need to work on that, but I mean, the time depends much more on how organized your material ledger. Let's say if we need to work saying we have to identify if we have price difference, not allocated, not distributed, and things like this. The tool itself is very simple. I would say 1 to 2 months we could implement, but it works more from the other side that says, okay, my material ledger, my cost component split, I trust on that. It's showing what I want. I just want to have multiple materials. So it's more to understand the other side of the customer side to see if we can implement in a short term. Let's say if a company, they have everything structured, cost component split, actual, working, closing is fine, there is not distributed, allocated. I would say in 2 months, they are working with all the 4 reports without any problem.
Next question is, can we also use this for the auxiliary cost component split?
Yes. I mentioned here, you can use for the auxiliary cost component without any issue, okay? Both, because we have a possibility of 2. And also in S4, with the 120 columns, we can also bring the 120 columns.
Last question, and Carlos, I wanted to let you know that I did receive the long question that you sent us. I'm going to go ahead and send that to Rogerio so he can answer that on his own since it is so detailed. So last question is, which are the restrictions to get the functionality?
There is no restriction. It's an enhancement in the tool, so there is no restriction. The restriction, I don't see a restriction. We never had.
Okay, so that is all we can get to today. I think there's just a couple of questions that we weren't able to answer. As I mentioned before, we will be posting this on our website with a recorded session and all of your answers to your questions. So don't fret if you didn't get your question answered today. Rogerio, thank you so much for taking the time to present with us. We really enjoy having you.
Thank you, everybody, again, and keep safe and see you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your week.